Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. The patch notes for today's balance patch are live and oh boy is this a big balance patch. 27 cards have been changed in this balance patch. That's quite something just a couple of weeks into a new expansion. Maybe it tells a little bit about the imbalances that were prevalent in the meta. But yeah, let's take a look at all of the changes. All of the nerfs were leaked by Blizzard accidentally last week, but there are tons of buffs that weren't. So let's take a look. First of all, the nerfs that were leaked already in advance. So we have Wild Library. Give a minion +1/+1 for each imp you control. So dropped 1/1/1. A small nerf to Imp Warlock, nothing too major. Then we have a small nerf to practically all Hunter decks, because all Hunter decks are running the Wild Seed package at the moment, with Stack Spirit Wild Seed, the best Wild Seed, being nerfed into Dormant for 3 turns. When this awakens, equip a 3/2 Great Bow. Alright, so 1 damage away from the Great Bow, okay, not too bad, just tiny adjustment. And then a bigger nerf to the best deck in the game at the moment, which is Control Shaman, with Snowfall Guardian becoming a 5/5, but Battlecry frees all other minions, no longer any stat gains. Which means that Shaman can no longer just freeze a board and then hit you in the face with a huge Snowfall Guardian, and then play a Parrot and do that again. It's just much weaker now than it was. It still is able to stall the game, so if Shaman can find alternative win conditions, this can still be a perfectly fine card, but this just doesn't win games single-handedly anymore. And then the death of Celestial Alignment. New, set your mana crystals to 0, set the cost of all cards in your hand and deck to 1. So Celestial Alignment no longer prevents the opponent from doing things. So even though you can get Celestial Alignment off, then typically you only really go off the following turn, and now if you're playing against like an aggro deck, they will have all of their mana available, so they're just going to kill you before you get to do that. Probably the death of Celestial Druid. And the one wild nerf that affects Big Rogue. New, costs 5 for Kobold Illusionist, so Big Rogue just can't do its thing anymore. And then the buffs. The 4 weakest classes in the game at the moment are Rogue, Paladin, Demon Hunter and Warrior. Demon Hunter and Warrior seem completely hopeless, Paladin is not that great, and Rogue actually has one competitive deck with the Lambie or H-Chrome's Rogue, but other than that Rogue isn't that great either. But now all of those classes are getting some buffs, and let's start with Demon Hunter. Relic Vault. Relic Vault is now going to cost 2 mana. Alright, that's a little bit of improvement for relics. But there is more. Relic of Extinction is now going to cost only 1 mana. So those were actually all the relic buffs that we got. And these might be enough to add the relic package into something like Fell Demon Hunter again, but we'll see how it goes. But in addition to the relic buffs, Blizzard also really wants to make that aggro Demon Hunter a thing. So we have Bibliomite. Battlecry, choose a card in your hand, shuffle into your deck, becoming a 4/5 instead of a 4/4. Wow. And also Magnifying Glaive, the card that was designed to be the centerpiece of this hand manipulation aggro Demon Hunter that just puts cards in the deck and discards cards and just draws a lot of cards, is now going to be a 3/2 weapon instead of a 2/2 weapon. That said, Bibliomite and Magnifying Glaive both were super weak in the original deck, so I just don't see that these buffs are actually going to make the archetype viable. Even though the archetype gets one more buff, with Battlegrounds Vanguard being unnerved back into 2/2 stat line. That said, Battlegrounds Vanguard has also been used in stuff like Fell Demon Hunter, and I think this buff is more important for those decks than for the aggro list, which I just don't see rising. Then we also have Abyssal Depths, draw your 2 lowest cost minions from 4 mana to 3 mana, possibly enabling some new things, but we'll see, it's currently not played. And then one of the more interesting buffs to Demon Hunter with Eyebound Brood from 8 cost back to 7 cost, so it has now been unnerved. And this is an interesting card, because like, would you put this into your aggro Demon Hunter? Could that be the thing that makes aggro Demon Hunter viable? That you can draw with Magnifying Glaive and then you can play some Eyebound Broods. That might do something. Would you play Quest Demon Hunter again? That's just a bunch of things that you might be able to do with Eyebound Brood, and this is really the joker of the new Demon Hunter buffs, because this can potentially go into multiple archetypes and just help Demon Hunter out a lot. Or maybe not, we'll see. And then we have Paladin buffs. Pure Paladin has been kind of mediocre. It's hovering at around 50%, so maybe it can be played, maybe it cannot. And the Countess was supposed to be the centerpiece of that deck, but Countess is not very good. Legendary Invitations, okay, sometimes you hire a lot of those, sometimes you don't. You pay 3 mana and then you get a 0-cost legendary, but sometimes that 0-cost legendary is still useless even though you get to discover it. But now those legendary invitations are only going to cost 2 mana down from 3, so that will enable even more tempo after the Countess play, and maybe that's enough to help it. And in addition to helping Pure Paladin, Blizzard is also trying to push that Silverhand Recruit Paladin, or maybe Quest Paladin. Quest has lots of synergies with Silverhand Recruits at the moment, with Stand Against the Darkness going from 5 mana to 4 mana, Warhorse Trainer, a core set card, getting a serious buff from 3 mana 3/4. With your Silverhand Recruits have +1 attack, your Silverhand Recruits have +2 attack and taunt. So this kind of now works as a semi-bloodlust as well. Okay, that's pretty interesting. And finally, a buff to promotion, gives Silverhand Recruit +3/+3, and now gives Silverhand Recruit +3/+3 and taunt. So with all of these taunts, that means that something like Quest Paladin is more survivable, but this could also work in Pure Paladin. So you could make Pure Paladin, add some Silverhand Recruit synergies, all of those are Paladin cards, and then have the Countess in that. So maybe that's even more fruitful approach, because Quest Paladin is currently a 23% win rate deck. It's not really a deck, so how much do you have to buff it to make it playable? These probably don't make it playable, but these might all help Pure Paladin. And then we're also getting multiple Rogue buffs, even though Rogue is the best out of those 4 weaker classes. And Rogue is getting buffs to one of its best cards, which is Edwin Defies Kingpin. From a 4 mana 4/4 with the effect to draw cards and get more cards, to a 3 mana 3/3. So Rogue can get this out earlier, and Rogue gets improved card draw. This is a really scary card to buff because it's already so good. But okay, well, Rogue was struggling a little bit, so this definitely helps. This is also run in the most common Rogue list, so alright, that's an immediate buff to existing decks. On the other hand, this is not a buff to existing decks apart from XLT Rogue, which actually does run this card. Sprint, 6 mana, draw 4 cards. Now, 5 mana, draw 4 cards. Okay. And finally, the real joker of the Rogue buffs, which is Silverleaf Poison. From 2 mana, give your weapon after your hero attacks, draw a card, to 1 mana, give your weapon after your hero attacks, draw a card. So maybe we'll be able to build some more Rogue decks around some weapons with the new Silverleaf Poison. And there's one more Rogue buff aimed at improving Secret Rogue, which is just really bad, and that is to give Halkias stealth. So okay, you get your Halkias, it's in stealth, you get to choose where it trades, you might have some secrets, Halkias dies, it's going to be stored inside the secret is going to be procced, Halkias is going to be resummoned. Is this going to be good enough to help an archetype that is total waste of time? I just don't see how it could be enough, but yeah, it's Blizzard's attempt at least. And then we have warrior buffs, many of them pushing that Enrage Warrior, Blizzard really wants to make that Enrage Warrior a thing. Enrage Warrior is miserably bad at the moment, and now Sanguine Depths, instead of dealing 1 damage and giving minion +1 attack, it's going to deal 1 damage and give minion +2 attack. I don't quite see this. And also Imbued Axe is getting buffed. I was hoping the Imbued Axe would cost 2, then it would actually be a playable weapon even without the infuse effect. But no, it's actually going to be buffed so that it gives your damage minions +1/+2 when it's uninfused, and infuse requirement is going down to 2, and then it gives +2/+2. So now infusing it is less important because you're never going to get it infused anyway. You might also even get it infused, but it doesn't really matter that much now. But you still need damage minions in order to get some buffs going. And speaking of damage minions, Cruel Taskmaster is going to be upgraded to baseline stats, yes. 2 attack, 3 health, and deal 1 damage to a minion, give it +2 attack, effect still intact. And we also have some potential buffs for Control Warrior, because we have some unnerfs. With Tidal Revenant from Battlecry, deal 5 damage, gain 5 armor, back to deal 5 damage, gain 8 armor. So Tidal Revenant has been unnerved. Another card that has been unnerfed, and this is a pretty big deal, is Shield Shatter. It was nerfed to deal only 4 damage to all minions, now it's going to deal 5 damage again. So this again became much better board clear, so they're giving Control Warrior a little bit more survivability, a little bit more board clears. As well as a couple of mystery cards like Slam from 2 mana to 1 mana, and Bash from 3 mana to 2 mana. And both of these cards could be used in Enrage Warrior, they could be used in some control-less decks, so they have multiple uses. But it's notable that Control Warrior's win conditions were not unnerfed. From the Depths and Nelly were nerfed, and neither of those have been returned. So Control Warrior, if you're running like Kazakus and win condition, you still can't really compete with Hearthstone Nathria. And that's like, you just don't have a win condition. Like, it's fun to be able to survive longer, and if there's a lot of aggro around, and it's enough to just clear off the boards, then okay, great. But once they have some finishers like Hearthstone Nathria, then that's just not going to be enough anymore. So those were all the 27 changes that are coming, and what does all of this mean? Well, there's minor nerfs to Imp Warlock and all Hunter decks, but I don't expect those to really matter much. And then there is a more major nerf to Control Shaman, because Snowfall Guardian doesn't just single-handedly win games anymore. So we'll have to see what happens with Control Shaman, that's a bit of a question mark at the moment. And I expect Celestial Alignment Druid to just die, but there's still always Ramp Druid and some Beast Druids and stuff, so Druid still has more archetypes left. There are tons of buffs for the 4 weakest classes, and Blizzard is really trying to push multiple archetypes for these classes. Like for Demon Hunter, Relic Demon Hunter, I mean, it's going to be something with Relic Fell or Relic plus something else. Relic package is just going to be one part. Maybe a Relic package is going to be good enough to play. We'll see. Then they're pushing that Aggro Demon Hunter, and just playing the regular Aggro Demon Hunter list with the buffed cards, I don't think that's going to work at all. But the real question mark is those Brutes. Are those Brutes going to be able to turn into some kind of new Aggro Demon Hunter list? Are those going to enable some kind of quest lists? The Brute thing is really the thing that it's interesting in Demon Hunter. Maybe there's some use for those. Brutes might even be combined together with Relics, and that's some interesting opportunities. Then we have Paladin, and they're really pushing Pure Paladin and that Token Paladin or Quest Paladin. Quest Paladin is so incredibly bad that I just don't see how those buffs can make it work. But Pure Paladin, it's getting some buffs, so maybe Pure Paladin will become more playable. Then there's Rogue. Rogue is getting card draw in multiple different ways. And this probably means that this sort of Lambi Rogue, H-Coms Rogue, whatever you would like to call it, yeah, that's probably going to be even better, so that looks like a fine deck. Quest Rogue potentially also gets some of these buffs. XL Thief Rogue potentially gets some of these buffs, so those are the Rogue decks that have some promise, but it's too early to say whether they're going to be good. And then there's Secret Rogue, but I just don't see Secret Rogue happening. And then we have Warrior. Enrage Warrior, it's really bad at the moment. Are those buffs going to be enough to make it a thing? It is going to get more board presence. It's harder to drive off the board. That might mean that there are more damaged minions on the board. And if you have more damaged minions on the board, you can get more buffs. And maybe that just snowballs out of control. Maybe there's some kind of a chance for that, but I just don't believe in it. And then Control Warrior, depends on the meta. Control Warrior gets better control tools now, but if there's Hearthstone Nathria and stuff in the meta, then that just means that, okay, well, Control Warrior is eventually just going to die because they didn't get a win condition. But they definitely have more control tools, so if there's a lot of aggro with no particular finishers, Control Warrior just might have the survivability now. So overall, lots of card changes, but I expect that the majority of these card changes will not make those archetypes playable. But there's probably going to be a couple that will arrive at the meta and will start mixing things up. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and a special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, YouTube members and Twitch subscribers who make all of these videos possible.